Thank you very much, Catherine. Thank you for having us here today and for organizing this excellent series. I'm really excited to be a part of this because I'm going to get to learn from our incredible panelists. We have an incredible group of panelists joining us from both local, not both, from all three, local, state, and federal levels. And I just wanted to say that as each of you have joined us, please know that you're doing a great service yet again to your community by sharing your expertise in this field. And so I'm going to give a brief introduction of our panelists and then turn it over to them to further introduce themselves. And so we have Adrian Frederick Newbold, who is a civil service engineer. Adrian, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Crystal. Thank you all for having me. I'm honored to be part of this incredible panel, and I'm so happy to see that so many students are registered to see what a great career public service is. So just to give you a little background, I am a project manager and civil engineer for the Port of Los Angeles. I earned my bachelor's degree in civil engineering with an environmental emphasis from Loyola Marymount University. I then went on to get my master's degree in civil engineering from UCLA. And I started working at the Port of Los Angeles as a student engineer my junior year in college. And I just fell in love with the maritime industry and public service, and I've been there 17 years. And I made my way into project management while I was working there. I earned my project management certificate from UCLA Extension and then went on to get my PMP license. And I also have a PE license, which is an engineering license, and an International Code Council certification. So in addition to that, I serve on several boards. I'm on the COPRI Technical Board, which is a ports engineering board. I'm also an active member of American Society of Civil Engineers, Women in Transportation, Women's International Shipping and Trade Association, the LMU Council for Industrial Partners, and the International Ports and Harbors Association Risk and Resiliency Committee. And to give you a very short synopsis to wrap it up about the Port of LA, as you can see from my background, this is the Port of LA. This is located in Southern California in the San Pedro and Wilmington communities. And we are the #1 container port in the United States. We have 7,500 acres. And to put that into perspective, that's about over 5,000 football fields. So hopefully that gives you an idea. We have 43 miles of waterfront, and our cargo value last year was $297 billion. So that's a little bit about me, and I'm so excited to hear from the rest of you. Thanks again for having me.
Wow, thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate your being here with us. Also, I would like to introduce Timo Wilkins. He is an instructor at Cal State University, Dominguez Hills. And Timo, if you would introduce yourself, please.
Yes, good morning, and thank you, Crystal, for having me on this panel. Very excited about this to share some of my background and experiences. So to give you a little synopsis, I started, as you might imagine, many weeks ago, many years ago. I started as an engineer, and I was involved in designing control systems for power plants. And that was just a fascinating field. And then in 1979, the gentleman that was running part of the project management office for my company asked if I would like to become the head of the engineering department's scheduling division. And I thought about it and I said, yeah, that sounds like fun. Okay, I'll do that. And so that was really my entry into the project management profession. So obviously I wasn't a project manager at that time, but I was responsible for the scheduling and the cost control of the various projects. And then over the years, my responsibilities and opportunities expanded, and I've been managing projects, been involved in the project management arena ever since, until I retired somewhere a few years ago. And so since then, I'm just teaching the project management certificate course here at Cal State Dominguez Hills. I actually developed that program back in 2007 from scratch, and it's grown. So we have a second instructor joining us now because of the demand for the course. So that's very heartwarming. I've been a member of Project Management Institute for many, many decades. My PMP certificate number is number 729. That gives you an idea here. We now have well over 100,000 PMPs, so I was one of the early ones, which is another story in itself. But in any case, so through PMI, I do volunteer work, I do presentations, I've written some papers and given presentations. My work background has been, I'd like to say, around the block in all directions. I've worked for on software projects, engineering and design projects, construction projects. I've worked for customers as well as contractors. So I've been on both sides of the contractual equation. And I've worked in private industry as well as on public projects. So I'd like to say I've seen it all, and I can pretty much appreciate the difference of what goes on in the different industries. So with that, I'm delighted to be here and look forward to sharing some more of the information we're looking to share. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And as our guests see, you're going to get a range of experience during this panel today. And so I would like to now introduce Pamela Irving, who is the Chief Acquisitions and Business Operations Chief for Acquisitions and Business Operations. Thank you very much for joining us, Pamela. Can you go on and introduce yourself more?
Well, first of all, thank you all for having me here. I really appreciate being asked. I started working in the public sector, actually. I started my career at the Walt Disney Company, and I worked there for a number of years. I was laid off due to job redundancy. And then I started my federal service career at the Internal Revenue Service. So you could say that I went from the happiest place on earth to the saddest place on earth. It was a bit of a transition, but not too much because Disney loves their acronyms, just like the federal government. So I was able to, I just had to remember where I was because some of the acronyms were the same. So I was at the Internal Revenue Service as an internal revenue agent where I audited taxes in the small business, self-employed area. And that went from individuals that owned small companies at home all the way to $10 million companies where I had to audit S Corps. From there, I went to DCMA, the Defense Contract Management Agency, because I wanted to go back to what I liked, which was acquisition. And I stayed there for a while. And that's where I was able to become a part of the Federal Executive Leadership Board. During that program, it was a wonderful experience. So if it comes up at your agency, tell them you want to participate. You get exposed to a lot of different organizations in the government. You get to learn things about yourself and put yourself out there. With that program, though, you're going to get out of it what you put into it. So again, if you see the email, go ahead and sign up. I know some of you aren't in federal agencies, but if you choose to, please participate in that program. From there, I went to the Los Angeles Air Force Base, where I am currently. I started as an acquisition program manager, and technically I am still a program manager, but I moved around on base in various programs. I started in the old Milsatcom area. We worked on various satellite programs. I was part of a ground program. I moved to SY, where they do those secret squirrel projects. And then I became a part of the cross mission ground area, where I currently report to the director of that area, Colonel Turnbull. We're responsible for a large portfolio of ground systems, and it's wonderful. I love being here. I get to do program management things as well as work on the finance side of the programs, and I truly enjoy it. So thanks again. But so that's not all I do. I do volunteer. I am a sexual assault advocate for the YWCA Greater Los Angeles in my spare time. And there I respond to calls from the community if survivors want to report being sexually assaulted. So I'll respond and go to the hospital with them and sit with them during the examinations. I get calls from police stations to go be with survivors if there is a lineup, or I do court accompaniment. Thank you for having me.
Wow, thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
That's you know, heart tugging actually. And I'd also like to introduce Brad Holt. And so, right, as you see, our guests are going to give a thorough introduction of themselves, but I will just say what I have listed is Operations Program Lead and Capital Improvements. Brad, could you tell us more about that? What do you do?
Well, I think I do a little bit of everything. As the operations program lead of capital improvements, I oversee about 160 different projects in our capital improvements business line. So we cover a lot of things at NAVFAC, which is the Naval Facilities and Engineering Command. So if you think of the Navy, we think of boats and ships out on the sea. The Navy also has airplanes, but in order to support those ships and airplanes, somebody has to be in charge of what's on the ground and what's ashore. So NAVFAC is responsible for all of the facilities on land. So we do airfield inspections, we do dry dock inspections, and decide what needs to be repaired and updated. So different ships and different submarines, anything can use those facilities. We also do a tall towers program, which provides communications to those submarines and ships. We work on explosive effects and consequences. So if you're going to build a laboratory where you're going to do some sort of experiments that could be explosive materials, we would help with designing your laboratory to make sure that if there were an accident, that it would, for lack of a better term, if there was an explosion, it would explode the correct way so that no one would get hurt. So all of that energy would go the direction that you want it to go and not where there may be people or other facilities around you. I think along those lines, we also do physical security technologies. So we call it the DoD locks program. We do a lot of different locking facilities and the locks, not just for the Navy, but we also do it for embassies and around the world for the State Department. So anytime there could be a secure facility, we would help with the design and construction of that. So that's what I currently do. I think a little bit about my background. I began right out of college. I ended up getting a commission in the Air Force. So it was interesting listening to Pamela speak because we had a few little career overlaps there. While I was in the Air Force, I worked with the Air Force Research Laboratory. So I was able to sort of work in the R&D world there, and that was very interesting. There were a lot of, not just active duty military people there, but there were a lot of civilian civil service positions available there. Then I moved on to the Aeronautical Systems Center, which was the same thing, sort of research and development for aircraft development and fielding. Very civil service driven agency. During that time, I worked on my master's degree, and because of my public service, then the Air Force paid for me to complete my master's degree. So that's one of the big benefits of any type of service. Then I went and I didn't work in space, but I worked under Space Command. So I worked at the Space Development and Test Wing and worked with Multi-Mission Satellite Operations Center. Then I left the Air Force public service for a while. I worked in industry. I consulted for American Airlines for about 8 years. And I oversaw their repair and overhaul contracts with Honeywell and Chromalloy Power Systems. So I had a lot of experience in the private sector. After that, then I came back into public service as a civil servant with DCMA, which I noted Pamela had also worked for DCMA. And then I became a logistician with NAVFAC, with the Navy, and then onto the position that I'm in now. So it's been a very interesting career path. And I think if I had been in college and I said, this is what I want to do, and this is where I end up wanting to be, I never would have imagined that's where I would be. So.
Thank you very, very much for that very thorough introduction. We really appreciate learning so much about all of your backgrounds. And now for Beverly Leifer. She is a field director and she's in our local kind of our Long Beach area. And she's in the Management Inspections Division. Can you tell us more about yourself, Beverly?
Sure. I'm currently with, well, I shouldn't say currently. My whole career has been with Customs and Border Protection, formerly, or legacy, they like to say, U.S. Customs Service. And before I get into my whole career, I want to start with Adrian being a civil engineer. My father was a civil engineer with the Army Corps of Engineers. And he just lamented that I and math did not get along. And he tried teaching me how to draw a straight line. And I just couldn't get it straight. It may not have been wavy, but it wouldn't just be up and down. It kind of went at angles and everything. So I decided to go into a major that I wouldn't need math. And I started as a customs inspector here in Long Beach. And I had no clue what a customs inspector did. My sister worked for customs as a criminal investigator, and I just thought, she was my idol, my older sister. And I just thought, wow, that sounds really cool. So I went into criminal justice and got a co-op with customs in DC. And it was with internal affairs, criminal investigations. And there weren't jobs in the criminal investigator positions at that time. There was a hiring freeze for them. So everyone told me, become an inspector, you'll learn about customs, you'll be the best investigator possible because you'll be the only one who really understands what customs does, even though at that time I didn't. So I got a job here in Long Beach at the seaport as a customs inspector, went to the basic academy, and I was just, my mind kind of blown, because you may not realize, but customs inspectors deal with numbers and math when it comes to tariffs and duties. When you come from a foreign country and you went overboard shopping for souvenirs, like I often do, and I would figure out how much they owed. I also figured out for imports, or helped with figuring out duties and things like that, the tariffs. So I thought, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into? Someone, my table seat, one of my peers or fellow students, actually had to show me how to figure out percentages on the calculator. That's how bad I was. So anyway, as I said, I started as a co-op. My full career, 34 plus some years, has been with Customs and Border Protection. At 35 years and minimum requirement retirement age, I'm not going to give my age away, but I hope to retire in a year. Actually, it's 10 months. So that's another thing that's really good with the government is I'm not, 20 or 30, but I'm not even yet 60, and you can retire fairly early with a good pension and a 401k type retirement plan. Anyway, my career path has been up and down voluntarily and purposely. That's the other thing I like about the government, is you don't have to go in a straight upward ladder to get to a management position or to get to where you want to be. So as I said, I started as a customs inspector here in Long Beach, work in the seaport, sometimes the airport. So I've been on those ships, Adrian, again, without realizing what I was going to be doing. And then took advantage of opportunities, what we call TDYs, temporary details, and just to learn more about customs and to do different challenges within customs. I transferred my first voluntary downgrade, transferred to Baltimore, Port of Baltimore, worked at the seaport and airport there. Some of my proudest moments were some narcotic seizures that I initiated, researched and analyzed and actually found. Then from there, I went to our Office of International Affairs, and because of the way the system works, and I won't go in great detail because that may be something I can discuss later on, but I actually went up over 2 levels over what I was when I took my downgrade, and ended up at the Office of International Affairs. 3 years of traveling around the world to the not so touristy spots. I was a course developer, instructor, inspector, and we would go to developing countries to work on their infrastructure, training customs officers and police officers on narcotics smuggling and things like that. How to, not the smuggling, but how to find the smugglers. From there, I took my second downgrade, went up to Montreal, Canada, to work at our pre-clearance airport station as a supervisor. I had reached a level that to go anywhere, you really had to have supervisory experience. And I had not had that yet. I got my upgrades within Office of International Affairs. So, and they were all, journeyman level. So I decided I wanted that experience for my career. So I took that downgrade, actually, went there for a few years, was offered a position or asked to apply for a position with pre-clearance management at our headquarters. So I went back up. I actually went to a fairly high level and managed our Caribbean and some of our Canadian sites, got to travel with that. So that was actually a lot of fun, and went to some nice spots instead of the Tajikistans or Turkmenistans of the world. And then we became CBP, Customs and Border Protection, and there were different opportunities. So I decided to apply for the Ottawa pre-clearance port director and had to take a downgrade. So that's what, my third downgrade, I think. Enjoyed working with the airport, building out some things there at the airport. It was a small staff, just really enjoyed that. And I just love Canada and living there. And came back to DC with the Management Inspections Division, where I am now. Again, up 2 levels. I was working in DC at the time. They asked me to come out to Long Beach, California, to be the supervisor or field director out here. Before this webinar, we all on the panel were talking about titles and terminology. And my field director title is not the official title. It's Supervisory Inspections Management, sorry, Supervisory Management Inspection Specialist. I prefer field director. It's a little easier. And what we do here is, I can't say we audit or that we're auditors because we're not certified, and GAO would frown on us calling ourselves auditors. That's what they do. But basically the same thing. We do primarily management compliance inspections, ensuring that offices are complying with procedures, policies, and laws. And we do some policy assessments as well, or we call focus assessments on certain programs. So I get to travel for that too. Sometimes not the greatest spots, more of the hot spots as well as weather goes. Being located in Southern California, we do a lot of the southwest border, San Ysidro, the Ajos in Arizona. And I dare you all to look up Ajo, and you'll see it's not really a tourist spot. At least San Ysidro, we can spend the week or stay in a hotel in San Diego proper. But anyway, that's where my career has taken me. Like I said, kind of a roller coaster, up and down and in different areas. And what I really want to emphasize is with the government, it gives you so many opportunities. I don't have a degree in program management or project management. I don't have any training in project management. In fact, I asked Catherine, are you sure I'm on the right panel for this? But that it's just, the opportunities are just great. And you don't have to stay within your field or your major. So I've enjoyed it. I've had the best 34 years of my life.
Thank you for that, Beverly. Thank you very much. And just for the record, my actual job title is Workforce Program Designer. Nope, Workforce Integration Program Designer, right? So there's a lot of titles that lead you to the field of project management. But lest I be remiss, I want to also introduce my colleague, Dr. Tom Norman, who is joining us here today. Tom, you want to introduce yourself? Tell us a bit about you.
Oh, just a bit. I've been teaching at Dominguez Hills management and human resource management courses for 15 years. And, had a background in industry before, working for Procter & Gamble, Wells Fargo, US Bank, and Sun Microsystems here in California. I'm glad to be a state employee now of 15 years. So thank you for the introduction. Thank all of you for attending.
And while Dr. Norman is joining us today, right, we have our project management panelists, but I challenge you all to think broadly as you've listened to some of the introductions about what project management is, because in many of our tasks, in many of our jobs, you'll see that the skills are pretty similar in what we do, even though we do it in very, very different fields. I consider myself a program manager. And so there's some language things we could talk about here, right? What is a project manager? What is a program manager or a operations manager? And so I'll open this up, but I want you to think broadly about the skills we discuss, as well as the job titles and the different industries and opportunities between private and public sector. Here we're talking about public sector and public service. And there's a lot of gratification to knowing that you are a part of a structure that keeps a country or a nation or a city running. So keep your minds open. Please do ask questions. Put your questions in the Q&A section so that we can keep track of them if you don't mind. And we'll answer them as we can. So for right now, I would like to pose a question to our group, and I'll be chiming in on some of these too, because even though I'm facilitating, I do work in managing projects. And so the first question I would like to ask our group, we've talked a little bit about your career paths, but what types of education or training do you feel prepared you to be successful? Anyone can feel free to open their mic. We don't have to go in order, and go on and chime in there.
Good morning. This is
Okay.
We all
We
want to talk.
Go.
Well, I'll just say quickly, because I just have a BA in what started as criminal justice, and at the American University where I graduated, my last year, they changed it to public administration, which I was quite upset by at first. And then I kind of got it that, that's what I'm in. I'm in public administration. A lot of my training that I've received was within the government. That's another really good thing. All my leadership training has been provided by CBP. Some great, that they were a week long, or actually it was like a 3-week series. So 1 week each, called the Command Leadership Academy. I'm still going through training. We're having some leadership training, 6 sessions, an hour, sometimes turns into 2 hours because they're so interesting. We get to talking. But really, when it came to education before my career, was just the BA. The best thing I ever did, and if you have the opportunity, was I was a co-op student which is pretty much the same as intern, but paid. So I got, I was lucky on that way, but it also time in as a co-op student applies to my service time. So that helps with my pay, with what grade level I entered at full time. So I really encourage, if you have opportunities for internships, one, it's a way to learn, but it also can get your foot in the door, especially with government service. I didn't necessarily have to go with customs at the time. I would still get that time in service.
Okay, so I'll chime in there. I find that I didn't really take an education to pursue a particular career. There was no way that I thought that I would wind up in project management per se. I just happened to be, starting in high school, be going down the path of engineering, and I could relate to things. And so throughout my life, that's probably given me some challenges relating to people. I much more easily relate to things and objects. They don't resist, they don't talk back, they don't have issues. So my education really started on the engineering path, if you will. And then I was, as I mentioned in my intro, I was recruited to head up the scheduling department. And so the education then helped me, though, in ultimately managing projects, because the technical background gave me the vision, the ability to see and grasp things that projects typically revolve around. And so I did get my MBA at New York University a few years later. That helped with management skills and general business skills per se. But other than that, with regards to project management training and education per se, it kind of came by, on-the-job training, the seat of your pants, attending those seminars and lectures and reading and studying, being involved with the Project Management Institute. So a lot of the knowledge that I've gained on managing projects have kind of come certainly after my formal education throughout the course of my career.
I'll echo that. My career path is very similar to Dr. Wilkins as with the engineering background, and it was a very natural progression, starting as a student engineer, learning that technical background and being part of a design team for major capital projects and designing container terminals and waterfront development. And then, as I grew, I had the opportunity to manage my own, major projects. So I was able to redevelop a $200 million container terminal. And that was my very first big project. And at the same time, I was going through my project management certificate. So that, I think, really helped as well in earning my PMP license. But looking back, it's really just the skills of teamwork, because I can think back in college, leading my senior design team. We had a project and it's all the same skills. It's planning, organizing, directing, coordinating, controlling. And really it's just being a leader and being part of a team. And so, just communication is always key. And I think that really helped. It's just a skill to develop that. And, being a part of a team can be anything in sports, and, you learn those skills and then you just apply them to life as you go on. So I think it's just a natural progression, and you can do it.
For me, my background, my BA is in fashion merchandising, which has nothing to do with what I'm doing. As was echoed previously, you get a lot of on-the-job training, and you're able to look at some different career paths depending on where you are, and take courses and maybe even get details, because I know here at SMC we also offer details in other areas as career broadening for you, and we have a career broadening program that you can participate in once you have a number of years under your belt for the career path that you're currently on. You can always do a career broadening program, and it may be here, it could be in a different state. And so that all of the opportunities are good if you just know where to look and ask questions and put yourself out there. So I started with the BA in fashion merchandising and went to the IRS, which some of the people that I audited thought was weird. But then when I let them know where my MBA was from, they felt more comfortable about it, because I went on to get my MBA from Pepperdine, and it's in finance and leadership. So working in those groups in my MBA program, along with the leadership programs that I participated on the job, and just grooming myself for positions and talking to mentors and talking to others in positions that I thought I was interested in, and learning what they did and getting advice from them, that helped me to get to where I am.
I think
I was just going to call your name, Brad. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. No, that's fine. I was just going to mention, I think that a lot of the important education, I feel like I did a lot of those broad skills and a lot of foundational skills in my undergraduate work, which, as I understand, a lot of the folks online are just now completing. So don't discount that if you're not in a highly technical field, such as engineering or some sort of science related field. I have my degree was in business, but there I learned, a little bit of business law. I learned budgeting and accounting. I learned, I think one of the important skills that I use so much is communication. So learning to speak and to write and be able to communicate with everyone, to do those things, mentioned earlier, like coordinating, organizing, planning, and all that kind of stuff. You have to communicate with everyone in order to do that. One of the other things about being in public service is the opportunity for additional training. So I received a lot of specialized training with program management. Within the DoD, we have something called Defense Acquisition University. So I did the program management level 3 certification is where I'm at now, but that was several courses. I've also completed PMP training. So there are a lot of parallels, but within the Department of Defense, there are different types of funding, and we have some different legal regulations and so forth that we have to comply with. So one of the things about being in public service is that you receive lots and lots and lots of training for your career growth and to help you prepare for whatever your next position is, or that, position 5 years from now or something.
You're muted, Crystal.
My window disappeared on me, and I was getting very nervous. I was like, wait, it's gone.
Okay.
What's happening?
I was going to add just one little addition here to the training topic. I found the best way to learn is to teach. You've probably heard that teachers are the best students. And yes, I can say that as a teacher, yes, we are the best students because we are forced to dig deep into the material and to become totally familiar with it. So I have actually learned more about project management as a result of this project management certificate program that I'm teaching, because I was asked to take that over in 2007, and there was nothing there. I had to develop the whole program absolutely from scratch, and I was literally hours ahead of the classes, class time of the students as I was doing this. So I learned so much in just developing that, getting all the thoughts together and focused for discussion and training. So if you have an opportunity to teach somebody something, jump on it, even if you're not totally comfortable doing it, because once you're committed, now you're on the hook. You have to do a deep dive and you're going to learn. You'll be amazed.
Thank you for sharing that. And so, so I've given our panelists a few questions, but they've been so thorough in their responses. They've really kind of addressed, their career path a little bit. But I also want to point out that they talked a lot about skills and very different academic journeys, right? So I heard criminal justice as a bachelor's degree. I heard fashion merchandising, right? I heard business. I missed a couple there, I think. What did I miss?
Engineering.
Engineering, there we go. Okay, and so my bachelor's degree is in rhetoric. What was that, Timo?
No, I was going to say engineering, and then somebody already jumped in. So let's have all us engineers here.
Yeah. My bachelor's degree is in rhetoric. Rhetoric is the influential aspects of speech patterns, and American studies. That's ethnic studies generally, right? I have to agree. It's really been about learning a job. So my career path, I want to share a little bit of how I got on this panel and why I'm here. My career path really started in higher education, and I have a degree in higher education with an emphasis in organizational behavior. And I kept thinking, there are processes that would make these things work a lot better, right? There are things we can do and ways we can organize. And so in my graduate program, when I would encounter a problem, I would set about fixing it. So, right, I kind of got this project coordinator experience by fixing my own problems within my academic institution. So, they didn't have this, I wanted to have it. I gathered all our stakeholders. I had a conversation. I said, what's our target, right? I aimed for what I wanted. And I never had heard the words project management as a field. Never, right? Again, my degree is in language and communication primarily. And so as I kept encountering challenges in my graduate program, I kept approaching them like, okay, who cares about this as much as I do? Let's get everybody on board and let's fix it. Once I finished my coursework for my graduate program, I was offered a position where they had gotten a grant for $2.2 million. That was my first project. And they said, build a thing. And I was like, okay, I can build this program, right? I know all the components from my education background. So the pathway to this career can be very different. Your degree doesn't actually stop you from gaining skills that will make you successful in this particular field. So as we're still on the topic of degrees, I'd like to ask about certifications. Yeah, Beverly, go ahead.
Well, actually, it kind of goes into what you're about to say, but I just wanted to add something, with what you were just saying. Yes, I started out criminal justice and got into the federal law enforcement. At the point where I applied for the job with MID, Management Inspections Division, the job was mostly about being a supervisor. But on the point of what Tamo said, and others as well, about learning on the job, I didn't even know what an internal control was, which ends up being policy. I didn't realize that, but that's my job, is looking to see, do we have strong internal controls within the agency? And I didn't know what the Green Book, the GAO Green Book, which is standards. It's a written standards of internal controls, what they are, what they entail, what should be included to make strong internal controls. I had no clue. And yet I took this job. They hired me for some other skills that I have, and they taught me up. I went to audit, even though I'm not an auditor, we went to we send everyone to a basic audit class. Things like that just were, I was already 20, about 20, 25 years in my career, and I'm learning whole new skills and a whole new program that I had, no clue about. And all of a sudden, when I was learning about internal controls, I'm like, oh, that's a policy. I know what that is. I've been dealing with that. But the people we deal with who we're inspecting, they too, because they haven't been taught what internal controls, so they too don't know. And yet I'm able to bring that to them, to the table, to let them know, hey, this is what you've been doing. That's an internal control. This is where you need to strengthen it. But I just wanted to point out, like you, I wasn't even trained in the area, or I shouldn't say trained, I wasn't educated in the area, but I was able to get the job because of the basic skills I have. And I was, as a manager, I was still learning.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So let's talk about this language we're talking about, right? Certification and degrees. I know I have a change management background with my academics, but there's also the PMP. And so Adrian and Tamu in particular, right? Because I know he teaches and trains for that. And I see your certification on the end of your name. So Adrian, tell us a little bit about what that PMP means.
So the PMP is a project management professional, and it's a certification that you can get in project management. And what helped me to earn it, so it's an exam that you take and you have to pass the exam, and then you have continuing education credits, but that you attend by public speaking, and you can also do technical training. And the reason that I got into it is because I was offered through public service, the project management certificate. And so that was, I feel so fortunate to have that as, a compliment to, my career. And it's really served me well. It gave me the background and the skills that I need to be able to manage major projects and lead the team. So I highly recommend it.
I have found that the vast majority of companies that want to hire project managers are now insisting on the PMP certification. Excuse me a second. So it is, of course, very, very important. And PMI it's a global organization that offers the PMP certification, so it is recognized worldwide. It is getting a little bit tough to obtain the PMP because they require a certain amount of work experience. And I was just looking at the information just a week ago. I found out that they seem to have tightened up the work experience requirement. I think they used to allow any leadership position in a project environment to serve or be recognized as work experience. But now they're phrasing it as it has to be in a project management position. Well, that's a whole world of difference, because to be a project manager, a lot of people that aspire to get the PMP, they're not at that point yet. And so I haven't been able to unscramble that. It kind of surprised me because before that, you could sit for the PMP exam with any kind of project leadership kind of experience. But that certification is one, of course, and then PMI has others as well. They have the the program management and the portfolio management certifications. They have now agile certifications and business analyst certifications. All of them are somewhat related, and they would help. But the biggest one, the most important one, is the PMP. Now, they do offer a CAPM, which is a certified associate in project management certification that does not require any work experience, and it is sort of an like a mini PMP, if you will. And that, if you can get that, absolutely go for that, because that at least shows companies that you're on the right path. You're willing to go in that direction.
Thank you very much. Pamela, Brad, you want to jump in here? Tell us, what do you think about this certification? Is this one that you hold, or do you hold any certifications in this particular field?
I do not have a PMP. I went to PMI training for the PMP, but I didn't sit for the exam. Within the DoD, like I said earlier, we have a project management certification that is similar. I hold that. It's project management level 3. I was in the logistics field for a little while, so I have logistics level 3 as well. And then I have a production quality manufacturing level 2. One of the things that I do not have, but at my command, since we are a very engineering type of command, and I think Adrian or maybe Tamo mentioned it, but a lot of our engineers, in order to get promoted eventually, have to have a PE, so a professional engineering license. So that one is important within the area where I work.
Thank you very much. Pamela?
So where I am, I have a level 2 program management certification. Just I'm one class away from the level 3. So I'm trying to get into that now. I hold a level 2 in contracting, which is good to know because we work with those contracts and we need to be able to tell which contract type would be best for us to use for certain projects that we're working on or programs. Um, I didn't sit for the PMP exam, but I did take the course. It just didn't work out time wise for me to sit for the exam, but it is a certification that I do plan on getting.
Thank you. Do public sector agencies help employees get those certifications, the PM different levels?
Yes, within the Navy where I am, it was offered through the Navy. I took the course, and also they were paying for people to take the exams. So that is also a big benefit in public service. One of those things that you don't have to bear that cost yourself.
So where I am, they do offer the class to sit for the PMP. They are working on setting up a program so that they can offer funding for the exam, but they do give you the course.
And for me, the city of Los Angeles provided that training, the project management certificate. So that was very nice.
This is one of those benefits. We're going to get to this conversation later, right? But when we talk about the benefits of working in the public sector, this type of upskilling can be a part of the job. Now, we're at a state institution at California State University, Dominguez Hills. And as you know, Tamo teaches the project management work. So I'm going to look forward to sitting in on one or two of those classes.
You're most certainly welcome. And for the rest of the attendees, absolutely, if you're interested in pursuing a career in project management, go jump on the CSUDH website and search around for the Project Management Certificate Program. It describes in detail. It's starting up in the fall here in a couple of weeks. So if you're interested, this is a very good time to jump in there. And we have a lot of fun with the program. I always enjoy it. The pandemic has put a little bit of a damper on it because now I have to teach virtually, and it's just not the same as a live class. But we still have fun, and it's working. So, and one advantage of the virtual teaching is I've now got students from the East Coast joining the class. So that's pretty awesome. But it's a good program. And when I was revving up, so to speak, for my project management career, we didn't have any kind of training or classes. PMI was founded in 1969, right? And so I started in project management in 79. So we'd have all these trainings. Now we have these courses that are offered specifically for training. You definitely have to look into that if you want to go forward in this, and I highly recommend it.
And so I want to read a comment from the question and answer area because I think it's pertinent as we kind of transition into our next topic. Brenda says, I work as a project analyst for a PM at the USC ITS department, and that's probably information technology folks, as an intern to log work experience hours. I found out that having your bachelor's affects the hours you even need to take the test. Does that sound right to you, Tamo?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And so I'm fairly familiar with that because I actually reviewed it again to see what PMI has done to it. They keep changing it. But to sit for the PMP exam, if you have a bachelor's degree, you require 4,500 hours of that so-called work experience within the last 10 years. If you do not have a bachelor's degree, then you require 7,500 hours of that experience. So that's the big difference. For the CAPM, you do not require any work experience.
And there we would add the benefit of education will save you 3,000 hours. All right. And so again, right, I don't have a PMP. I am interested in getting one, and I will ultimately probably have one because I've been kind of doing this work for several years now. However, I want to get back to this conversation of the skills. Timo?
Oh, no, I was going to say, Crystal, I'll be looking for you.
Oh, I'll be there. I'll be there. So
No,
I want to kind of get back to this skill conversation, right? So I'm going to share my screen. Can we all turn off our mics for a moment? I'm going to share my screen right now because I want to show you something that we've alluded to in the conversation. And I want to just kind of make it real clear. So our panelists, what you're looking at right now is some market analyst research. This is specific to the job title project coordination, but it is one of the job titles that we typically find for project managers, project coordination, operations management, things of that nature. And so as I show you this set of skills, these are what are called the hard skills or the more technical skills. But I want to point out that our panelists spoke more to teamwork, planning, organization, coordination, communication, right? And so these are skills that right now you're developing, right? All of the skills that you heard our guests speak about, and they've also alluded to how important these skills are. But I want to remind you also that we have some technical skills that fall under this. And so in particular, project coordination and project management are kind of vague terms, but they involve teamwork, planning, organization, coordinating, and communicating. Those are some of the skills that fall under project coordination. And so what do you think, panelists? Looking at these skills as professional project managers or operations folks, what do you think? Do these look about accurate?
From my perspective, they do. Excuse me. These are, as you say, the technical skills that will get you through, because these are the things that managing projects get involved in, okay? You need to get the work done. You need to get it done within the budget. You need to get it done within the time frame, the schedule, and so on. And you're going to be interacting with suppliers if you outsource anything. So the procurement arena is a big, big item. I've never been really much involved in auditing, quite frankly, occasionally, but not to a great extent. And then requests for proposals, yeah, that's part of the procurement arena to work with bidders to make sure you get the right kinds of bids. Accounting ties into budgeting and cost tracking. That's a biggie. And I would elevate that up, right up there with budgeting, but this is, I'm not sure where the data came from, whether that's a poll or whatever. So, but yeah, I found accounting needing to interface with project teams from a budgeting and cost management standpoint was very, very important. So these are the hard technical skills. Okay.
Yeah, my apologies. I should have told you where the data came from. This is market analyst research, and the information we're looking at is data mining from our partner, which is MZ. They do economic modeling. And what you're looking at is the dark blue is the frequency in job posting. So how often employers have posted using these words for this job, right? Project coordination, et cetera. On the light blue side, you see how often workers, meaning the LinkedIn profiles, people resumes, use that language in their profiles. So this is kind of the skills associated with workforce profiles representing what project coordination looks like in our specific 6 counties that SCAG covers. And so I wanted to ask Pamela, what do you think about this, right? And so we have different experiences. Does this hold true in your field?
Yes, it does.
I think it's pretty, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I thought she called me. Sorry, Tammy. No, go ahead.
Actually, I did call you Pamela. Go on.
Okay. With my area, yes, these are pretty prevalent. What they didn't include was communication skills because we have to do a lot of writing, we do a lot of briefing, we need to be able to talk to people no matter what level of the company or organization they're in and be able to defend what we're doing and talk about why we did it. The budgeting and finance and accounting, yes, that is good. You need to be able to understand some of those principles, but with DoD, they have a different way of how they look at their accounting and budgeting stuff. And again, a lot of the classes on at the DAU assist you as well as just working on a program long enough, you'll get the experience to understand some of those things. And finances, understanding the finance and budget for your program is very important. So, thank you.
Thank you. Brad, how does this gel with your experience in your field?
Very closely. So, one of my master's was in accounting. My undergrad was in business and management. So I think I go back to Pamela. She mentioned communication. So in order to accomplish program management, which is planning and organizing, you have to communicate with a lot of people to figure out what's going on. Same thing with budgeting. So you can get, the cost of each piece of your project that you're building. And then, of course, same thing with scheduling. You need to know how much time does Crystal need to perform this task? How much time does Tamo need to do that task? How long is it going to take our supplier to get us, the parts or production that we need? So there's always just tons of communication that goes on. So I really very much agree with that. And then I think earlier Adrian mentioned something about leadership in general. So bringing all those things together, brings in a lot of the leadership type of skills.
Thank you. Beverly, tell us, same thing. How does this gel with your experience? How do these skills line up?
Well, for me, not so much. Just because we have offices and people who do the budgeting. I mean, I have to present a budget, or I get presented a budget and then have to try to stick to that. And that's basically our travel budget, because we do, up until these last 2 years, travel to conduct our reviews or inspections. Procurement, I go to someone when we need some supplies. I don't have a purchase card, a credit card, government credit card to buy these things. But when it comes to project schedules, definitely every year in advance, we schedule our inspections for the next fiscal year. We have 5 field offices. So we schedule where each office, and we do it kind of together because we don't want more than one team going to the same site. So we'll get a list of, based on risk assessment, like 150, 130 locations, offices within CBP, such as ports of entry, border patrol stations, or administrative offices. And we go through them together, and we have to pick where we're going. And then we have to do a budget for that, present a budget. How much is it going to cost? How many team members are needed to conduct this review? And that's especially important if we're traveling and we have limited money. Sometimes requests for proposals, we do submit, individuals submit it, but especially the field directors, the supervisors will submit proposals of types of review, or what to review, as I mentioned earlier, about policy assessments. I may be out in the field conducting these compliance reviews, and I may notice, the same issue, the same non-compliance keeps coming up, and it has to do with the policy itself. There's a conflict in the policy. It's not so much that the office isn't complying, it's they're not able to comply, or they don't understand the policy. So then I would write up a proposal. The auditing, as I mentioned, yes, we do auditing, but we can't call it auditing, and it's not the numbers auditing as most people may think of, like with accounting, or did you overspend, things like that. We're, again, our type of audits are inspections or reviews for compliance. And then also looking at internal controls to see if they need to be strengthened. So I'm not quite needing all of these. My top skills, I would say, which I think would do well in project management, is analytics. You need to, for what we do is you collect information and data, and that comes through communication. We do interviews, we ask questions, we review documents, we have to compare the documents to the policy, to what the answers of the interview, things like that. So the analytical part, I think, is the top hard skill, learning how to collect data, learning, and this is all part of that analytics, interviewing, developing a rapport. We don't go in like we're interrogating people. It's that communication skill again. Sometimes we actually have to, kind of stroke hands, get them comfortable with what we're doing and who we are. Especially, we used to be under our internal affairs, which, as I mentioned earlier, that I had started with as a co-op, is they're like the police who police the police. So when they heard we were coming, they thought, oh no, something's wrong. I mean, majorly wrong. And we had to explain to them what we do. So again, that communication, explaining what we're there doing, and that we're not the gotcha police. We're, that old saying, trust me, or, I'm with the government, I'm here to help you. It kind of is that way for us, because as I tell managers in the field, you'd rather it be us, we're internal, to tell you what's wrong and how to strengthen the internal controls, than to have the Government Accountability Office or the Inspector General coming in and inspecting you and telling you what's wrong, because those reports go up to Congress and affect our budget, our support from Congress, whereas we just report to executive management, letting them know how things are going. That's bad enough if it's going really bad, but it's better than Congress calling up our executive management to the Hill because of an IG or GAO report.
Thank you. And Adrian, what do you think?
Yes, these very closely align with what I do as well. I think majorly it's the project coordination, budget, and schedule. But I want to echo what others said, that I feel like communication is missing. And in what I do, we really manage capital improvement projects from the entire life cycle, from planning and design through construction and operation. So that's coordinating with stakeholders, for example, a container terminal, working with a shipping company and making sure that we're designing the infrastructure that they need, or with a waterfront development for public access, understanding, the needs that they have, if they need, the facilities that they need, if they want a concert venue and restrooms and, all the important things that you need for public access. So anyway, I wanted to mention just a couple buzzwords that I think fall under project coordination, but they are skills, throughout the life cycle, is change management, which I know you're very familiar with. And because, things, you have to be able to manage change throughout this process, and then also monitoring. So when things are completed and in operation, it's important to go back and well, actually throughout the entire process, each stage, you need to monitor it to be able to keep things on schedule and on budget.
thank you all very much for helping us think through what some of these hard skills or technical skills, as we say, look like. And, you know, we've mentioned a few times the more common skills, as they are called. And so I'm going to go on and bring those up just right to kind of honor the conversation, because they are absolutely there. And I also want to encourage our students, right? So these are the skills you're working on. Now, this particular report is an analytics report, right, Beverly? Analytics is very important in what I do in particular, right? I gather data. I'm looking at what skills we need in particular fields. How do we develop our students to get the skills they need to be proficient in these areas? And a lot of times our students think, you know, why am I here? And, you know, it's because management, communications, coordinating, planning, operations, leadership, presentations, y'all. These are the things that we do on a daily basis for most of us who consider ourselves in operations or managing projects. These are the skills you're already building and you should be looking for. If anyone would like to comment on these common skills, as they're called, please feel free.
I find it interesting on the dark blue side, leadership is halfway down the list. And yet on the light blue side, it jumps up to the second most important one, if you look at the size of the bars. And PMI is now also addressing a lot of discussions about managing versus leading, okay? And they're saying it's not so important to be a manager, you need to be a leader. And so that can raise some interesting discussions. Well, what's the difference between management and leadership? Okay, and leadership is absolutely vital. And so when I teach that to my students, I ask them, what's the most important thing for a leader to have? And, you know, to keep it short over here, the answer really is a vision. The leader needs to have a vision for the team to recognize and to buy into. And then with all the rest of these soft skills, to my way of thinking, the three most important ones are really delegation, empathy, and being able to listen. Okay? Delegation is probably one of the most difficult things for a project manager, certainly a new project manager, to come to grips with. I mean, I have found it so often in my career where a technical expert deserves a promotion, but he's at the top of the technical ladder. So let's make him or her a project manager, because that appears to be a step up, and they jump into that and they know the technology absolutely top notch. Now, the problem is they need to let go. And that is so difficult. When I introduce project management, I ask the students, so what is a manager supposed to do? And again, after lengthy discussion, I say, no, a project manager is supposed to do nothing. Okay, you need to let go. You're not supposed to do anything. You're supposed to lead. You're supposed to empower your team. You're supposed to guide the team. But if you get into the doing, the production of what your project is all about, you are not a manager. You're just an ordinary team member worker anymore. But that is so very hard to be a good manager. You need to be able to delegate. Okay, and you need to have empathy. You need to have empathy. Just a quick little note. Years ago, one of my team members came to me and he said, you know, I've been trying to get to the doctor, and for several months now, I keep making a doctor's appointment, but because of the job pressures, I keep having to postpone it. I've got another doctor's appointment scheduled on Monday, but this thing is due. What should I do? What should I do? And I said, are you crazy? Maybe I didn't say it literally, but effectively, that's what I said. The most important thing around here is your health, okay? The project will get over it. Stuff happens all the time. We can handle it. Keep that doctor's appointment. So, you know, I think what I was doing there was showing empathy for their personal needs, personal lives. That is so important. Don't treat your team members as a tool or as an asset. Okay.
Thank you.
They are what makes your project.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Beverly. Go ahead. And I saw you laughing, Brad. I wanna get your take on that. Go ahead, Beverly.
Well, I just wanted to say, I mentioned quite a number of these, maybe not the exact words, but I just wanted to point out, if you're not a PMP, so you have to be certified. So you probably learn a lot of the hard technical skills. You have to learn the hard technical skills, but don't cut yourself short. If you're, again, I had asked Catherine, are you sure I'm on the right panel for this? And it's these common skills. Everyone has mentioned communications, whether it's written or oral. Like I had mentioned, just doing interviewing, the coordinating, working with more than just yourself. I mean, when we do our reviews, we have to coordinate with our team, our local team, our headquarters. Then we have to, with the program office or operational office we're going to visit, we're going to review, we have to coordinate with their headquarters. And then downward, we coordinate them with the regional, if you want to say office, and then the actual location, the local management. And especially with the communications, you're dealing with all levels of employees. You're dealing with the person who actually is accountable for that program, whether it be the travel card or responsibility for firearms, things like that. You're coordinating with them, but then you're coordinating with their supervisors, you're coordinating with the local management, the port director or the sector chief, which then goes back to planning. That first big inspection schedule we have for the year, but then there is, through the review as well. And being flexible. Adrian talked about, change, being flexible. Things happen. The pandemic, we would go out to every site, mostly every site, to do our reviews so that we could do actual inspections, inventories, inspections of firearms, the serial number on the firearm that's etched in the firearm compared to the report or list of firearms, things like that. We had to adapt. I wrote up a whole process. I had to find out what type of inventories we do, what inspections we do, their actual physical inventories and inspections, and look at our technology that CBP has. And not every site has the same technology. That is a downfall of the government, I'll say. Some people have government iPhones, other people have government Samsung phones. So we couldn't use FaceTime as a way to do visual inspections, but we had to come up with a whole plan on how to flip what we do to remote inspections and still complete a full inspection, not let areas fall through the cracks because we didn't have a way to inspect them. But I also had to coordinate with the program owners and the policy owners on that. And then presentations, it's not just, having a PowerPoint. It's how do you present things? Is it going to be a PowerPoint? Is it a report? Is it a formal report? Things like that. And for us, the research, you have to know the policy, you have to research the policy, you have to collect data, collect documents, whether we do it ourselves, the team does it ourselves, or we have to communicate to the site exactly what we want. And we have found, that constantly needs tweaking, because talk about terminology again, it's not always the same. Even within an agency, it may not quite be all the same. Mostly it is, but you have different regions of the country. So to me, the top common skills for any type of job, but especially for what I do, or if you're not a certified program manager, these are what are important for me and what I look at when I hire. I look for these skills in resumes and in interviews.
Thank you. We are going to come to you in a moment. Adrian, Brad, did you have something you wanted to add? I saw that laugh when Tamu said, you're supposed to do nothing. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I thought that was really funny because from when I look at my job description or I look at what my duties should be, it is almost like, you know, a project manager should do nothing or the program manager should do nothing. And in a perfect world, that would be true. But really, a lot of it is troubleshooting and coordinating, you know, when the schedule goes haywire, something doesn't happen correctly. And then you're working with the project manager to say, okay, do we need to re-baseline? How do we need to fix the schedule? We need to talk to, you know, who's going to be impacted by this schedule change and other things like that. So yeah, I was laughing like that, but man, that's what I should be doing is nothing, but it's busy. I'm not ever doing, I'm not ever not busy. There you go.
Well, when you do nothing, you certainly are very, very busy because your day is still filled. Excuse me, just one brief moment. My mouse battery died. Would you believe it? I need to run out of the room to get new batteries. I can't move my cursor. I can't mute myself. I can't do anything. I'll be right back.
Look forward to you rejoining us. Adrian, your hand was up.
I just wanted to add one or two quick things. Dr. Wilkins talked about empathy, and I think, just in my experience, being a good leader, you need to lead by example, and in order to have your team follow you. And I think a couple skills on that is obviously communication we've talked about, but also dedication and hard work. You know, if they see you working, they're going to work too, and they're going to deliver for you. And also, having a high sense of integrity and making sure your authentic self. People respond to that, and people want to help you and get the job done for you. So just wanted to mention those.
Thank you. Pamela, anything to say about these common skills here?
They need to put on there being resourceful because you have to, and being flexible, because you have to be able to be flexible. Like Brad mentioned, if something happens, you have to figure out what you're going to do, what thing you're going to give up on, and what you're going to pursue now. You need to know what to do and how to handle those situations. And it just depends. And I know that some of my stuff is kind of vague. It's just because of what the things that I work on. I can't really say. But you have to be flexible. Another thing is you have to be able to have crucial and critical conversations. Some people don't like to do that. They get a lot of anxiety around telling people that this is not right, this is wrong, but you have to be able to do that. One of the jobs that I have or tasks that I have in my current role is I have to have a lot of those conversations. But if you can say it in a positive and convincing manner and get them to understand what's going on, it's a lot easier. Not having angst or anxiety about what you have to cover with them and just talk about it, it's easier.
And so thank you all very much. And I'm looking at the time, and our time is getting away from us. And this has just been so interesting hearing about all these experiences. We have a couple of questions that are pending, and they kind of align a little bit. So one of our guests is asking if we're on LinkedIn. So if anybody would like to share their LinkedIn information, we'll go on and collect it. You can either drop it in the chat space, or we'll go on and collect it from you, and we can share it with the community. And also mentoring and internships. Do any of you mentor, or do you have maybe some suggestions for how someone could maybe intern in this type of space or area, field?
I have actually been part of the Project Management Institute Los Angeles chapter's mentoring program. So I was a mentor, and I had a couple of mentees, who had certain challenges on the job and so on. So we talked about that. We met initially every week, and then every several weeks after that for a little bit. So yeah, the mentoring can be helpful. I found it rewarding because I could see, what challenges other people had, and I was happy to be able to help and hopefully help and guide them into some direction. So you can certainly look out for that. And one of the benefits of Project Management Institute PMI membership is you get those opportunities. So something to consider. And I've got my mouse cursor back. I had a panic attack. Why is my cursor not moving? So I'm back.
Thank you. Hopefully, if we can get a link or if you can share with us that mentoring program information, we will make sure that it goes out in the follow-up email, folks. And so, Brad, what do you think? Do you have any mentoring experience, or how would somebody get experience in this field, particularly an internship?
So within NAVFAC, we do usually have some summer hires. They do tend to focus on the engineering or science field. So either civil engineering is very common, or we employ a lot of scientists. So if you're, biology or chemistry major or something along those lines. We also do sort of more of the general other areas. So if, your background is in business, or if your background is in, another liberal arts type of degree, we do have some summer internships in logistics and some other fields. I think so there are some opportunities out there. I think they come out in the early springtime. So one of the links that I forwarded to you was the usajobs.gov website. So around the springtime, if you're looking in January, February, March, you might see those summer announcements come out. There was also an employment flyer that I sent, and I believe you're going to share later. And I'm not sure that's from our human resources department. I'm not sure if that information is on there, but they do exist, and they do exist across the federal government, not just with the Navy. So anywhere that you're looking to go, or anything that interests you, there's so many different federal agencies. You could do that.
Thank you very much, Pamela.
Sorry. At the Space and Missiles Missions, SMC, it's easier to say. Space and Missile Systems Center in LA, Los Angeles Air Force Base. We do have various intern programs. We have a PAC program, which allows a student to continue to go to school and work here. We also have, like Brad mentioned, summer internships. We have developmental programs as well. So if you've graduated already, we have developmental positions in various career fields, and those are all found on USA Jobs. I didn't get a chance to contact my TM, my talent manager director, to get her information to share. So I will get that to Dr. Rawls and Ms. Catherine so that we can get that info to you if you are interested. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that information with us. Brad, use your hand up.
Yes, I just had a little bit of information to add. So for recent college graduates, we do have something, we call it an internship, but it's usually a 3 to 4 year period. And when they're done with that, then they are hired full time. So we call it internship, but they start out usually at the GS7 grade, and then within a year they get promoted to the 9, and then promoted to the 11, and they top out at a GS12. So during that period, they are kind of in a learning phase. So I think Dr. Tamo talked about that catch-22 of getting a PMP certification, but you have to have so many hours of project management experience. And they say, well, you're not going to get project management experience because you don't have a PMP. So we do have those type of programs for recent college graduates. It's not really like the summer part-time internship. It's a full-time position. And when you've completed the 3 to 4 years, then you're in sort of what they call a full performance position. So.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Adrian, do you have any?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Adrian, go ahead.
It's okay. No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to add on to what Brad was just saying. With regards to the experience that is so difficult to get, one thing to remember is volunteer work does count. So if you were a project manager on a volunteer activity, by all means, throw that in there, because sometimes that's overlooked. You know, we don't think of volunteering as real work, but don't forget that.
Thank you, Adrian.
Yes, so through the City of Los Angeles, we do have a student engineer program. And so our applications are going to be due in December, and that's through our Human Resources Division. And as a fun fact, 25% of our entire division started as student engineers, and even our deputy director. So that's really exciting. So people stick around because it's such a great place to work. And then for seniors, the City of Los Angeles will come do on-campus interviews in fall and spring. So, you know, if you'll be graduating, that's really good to do your interview there. And what happens is you get on a list, and then once there is a opportunity, then they'll choose from that list. So anyway, that's a great thing to do. And then just in general, I am a member of Women in Transportation, and they have a mentorship program every year, which is really great. I've done it a few years. And so that's Women in Transportation, WTSLA.org. And then just in general, get involved in clubs and organizations through your campus and attend networking events, and you know, just know your worth and be confident, and hopefully you can get that internship.
So if I may,
Yes.
Adrian just mentioned a professional association, and there is the federally employed women's organization, FEW. And that's for any employee, any federal employee. You don't have to be a woman. And you can be at any level and in any position or career path. And they focus on both personal skills. I mean, for work life skills and your personal life, as well as the skills, those common skills. They have seminars. They have a training week. They did it last year virtually. It went really well. I think they went back to doing in person, but a combo. So once you get into the federal government, I highly recommend even these general professional organizations. Your agency may or may not pay for it. You can submit request. It's considered training. And going back to the training information, I have never, well, I shouldn't say never. One time I was, but I've not been denied going and have had it paid for. We're talking several $100s usually, or a few $100s, but it's so worth it. I really recommend it. The other thing is keep thinking about mentoring once you're hired, and especially if you are, your focus or your career goal is to get into project management, but you couldn't get into it upon entrance because you didn't have your PMP or you don't have years of experience within the agency. Look for mentors, both formal and informal. CBP does have a formal mentorship program. It's open to all employees, but it's mostly geared toward the top operational offices, the law enforcement offices. But there's nothing to stop you to ask your supervisor or another coworker, team member to be your mentor, or not even a formal mentor. Just go and pick their brain. I mean, I've done what I think is mentoring for some employees that I supervise, but I won't call it formal. I just told them about my career, what I've done. They've come to me with questions, or, I have to make a decision. Do I want to go here or there? And we just talk it out. And to me, that's a form of mentoring. So don't short yourself, because there isn't a mentoring program, and take it upon yourself. I really loved it and enjoyed when employees came to me to ask questions, and not just about my career, but just in general. So, and you don't necessarily, our mentoring program at CBP, you don't even have to be in the same program office. We have someone in Miami in mid that's mentoring someone who's actually in another office. I think it's in our Office of Field Operations. So it can cross lines. And sometimes I think that's better because you broaden your knowledge, your experience, and your horizons, your career choices.
Thank you. And so a couple of questions, right, as I'm thinking about all this and all these different experiences, right? I work in the public sector, but not necessarily in public service. How would somebody get started in these government jobs, and why public sector or public service instead of the private sector? Brad, you want to jump in and take this one for us first?
Sure. I think I mentioned earlier, and I saw that you posted it in the chat with regard to usajobs.gov. So I believe every federal level agency is required to post their jobs there. So that's a great place to start. You can also, if you look over on the right side, you can sort it by agency. So you can start to see all the different types of things that we have. Also, all the different types of career fields that we have. So I work primarily with an engineering type of command or science-based, but there are so many different things. There's general arts, there are, graphic designers, interior designers, there's, engineers, scientists. I believe we've got someone from, Customs and Border Patrol. So there's all kinds of stuff in there, and it's anything that you're interested in. I'm sure that there's something there for you. Now I forget the second part of the question because I talked too much.
Why public service and not, or public sector, public service and not the private sector? We hear they make a lot more money in the private sector.
I hear that. I've served in both. So at present time, my salary is equivalent, or well, it's higher than what I made in the private sector. So I don't think it's all about money. I believe that you can do well. We don't necessarily get like large end of year bonuses and some things like that, but there are lots of opportunities out there. So I wouldn't let pay dissuade you. Also, I mentioned, our program where you start as a GS7 and you end up in a few years as a 12, like your 12 pay is very, very competitive for a recent college graduate. And you have a career path instead of going into the private sector where you don't necessarily know where you're going to go. But I think like why the public service sector, I think someone mentioned it a little bit earlier, but, contributing to something, for the community or some sort of community service. Within the DoD, obviously, it has to do with the Department of Defense, but we send over people overseas to, different areas that are affected, and we do water well drilling, for communities that don't have fresh water. We do a lot of humanitarian efforts where we send field hospitals out, like during Ebola. You saw the USS Mercy came into LA Harbor, so I didn't contribute directly to that, but the department that I work for did. So there's a feel-good aspect about that. But I think, like I mentioned earlier, there's just so many broad things. I mean, a lot of the things that I've worked on, I never thought that I would work on it. Like I worked on a satellite operations center, and I worked with explosive safety siting for buildings. And one of our groups in our environmental department works with communicating with whales. So some of the experience that you can get within the federal government, you really can't get in private sector. And like we mentioned earlier, training. There's so many opportunities for training. And I believe that the public service really develops you. What I found in the private service is typically your position has an amount of money that is being made for the company attached to it. So sometimes they don't necessarily want you to move, or they don't necessarily want you to, you know, get promoted because they're not pulling in the same amount of money, or they're not, you know, making as much off of you. And I don't see that happening as much in the public service.
Thank you. You know, I'm going to ask Adrian to jump in now because you're at the more local level, right? Many of our panelists are at the federal level. And so, of course, Timo and I are at the state level, but what do you think, right? Why public service first? And how do we start in your field? How do we get in there? How do you get in the door?
Yes, well, I love public service. You know, I've been with the Port of Los Angeles, which is a department of the city of Los Angeles, for 17 years. And I started as a junior in college, as I mentioned. And it's just the benefit. It really is something, like Brad said, it's something bigger than you. You're a part of, you know, the community that you live in. And it's really nice to be able to contribute to that. And you know, a lot of the benefits for public service is job stability. You know, this is, you have a job for life, pretty much. You know, you do a good job and you have a career path. And then the pension, the retirement. So if you work 30 years, you will have a pension. And that's just, you know, a lot of companies just don't have that anymore. And so that's a huge benefit of the city. And then also the work-life balance. We haven't really mentioned that, but it's, you know, I have 3 small children. I have 5-year-old twins and a newborn, and I'm able to still manage, you know, major capital improvement projects and be really busy and work hard during the day, but also I'm able to enjoy my family and, you know, attend soccer games and things like that. So that's really important. And the value that they place on family, you know, particularly where I work. And so that's really great. And then again, the training, like Brad said, just, you know, they want to retain their staff. So they really make sure that you are trained well. And something we mentioned earlier, the tuition reimbursement also. So I was able to get a master's degree and get a project management certificate after that, all, you know, with tuition reimbursement through the city of Los Angeles. So that being said, as I mentioned, you'll have there's on-campus interviews for all the state schools, and just go to your career center and find out the day when the city of Los Angeles comes. So obviously there's several city departments, and the harbor department is one. But if it's another department, Department of Water and Power or the airport, it all goes to the same list. So just go to the City of Los Angeles Human Resources website, and then also your own career center, and figure out when they're coming to your campus and interview, and just get on that list. And it's a citywide list. So any opportunity that opens up in the city of Los Angeles, then you would be on that list and be eligible to promote to that position. So yes,
Thank you very much. Timo, do you want to talk to us a little bit about the state level? How would somebody get involved at the state level?
Were you asking me? I'm sorry. Oh, okay. You know, that's not a question that I could really readily answer. I kind of just fell into it by accident. I didn't pursue it, so I'm not sure what the actual entry point or approach is. So I have to confess that I wouldn't be a good source of an answer for that. So you know, if luck counts, perhaps that is one avenue, but it's not very reliable.
Well, in a way it is, because some of us did fall into the field, right? We pursued one thing and it led us to these skills and it led us to the field. And, you know, we can call that fortuitous, maybe not luck, but fortuitous, because I really enjoy my field, even though I started with a whole different mindset.
Yeah, I mean, it is, as you say, you know, it's been totally rewarding. I have not been an instructor formally ever in my life until I started this particular program. And so it's been just a total joy. I really love it. And I'm just glad to be a part of it.
Thank you. I see your hand there, Brad, but if you give me a second, Pamela, how did you, wait, I almost lost my own question. Why public sector and not private sector? There you go.
So for me, I was laid off. So I was like, why not? Um, I did work public sector and it was fine, but like Brad mentioned, sometimes you're too good at your job, so they don't want to let you go. And so they may not give you a good recommendation when the people come asking about you. I like the public sector because with the job that I do, I can go anywhere in the US and work. If they have an opening, I just have to apply my skill set and the credentials that I've got, apply so I can move, and because of all the opportunities. So we also offer overseas opportunities for civilians, and you can go from 6 months to a year. And I just think it's great. And it's a working for a bigger thing. So I have some nieces and nephews that are actually in the Air Force or other military organizations serving. So I'm a part of making sure that some of the equipment that they're using is great and working for them in the environment that they're working in.
Thank you. Brad, you had your hand up?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to comment on Tamo's thing about luck. And I would say what I've taken from most of the people here is most of them didn't think that this is what they would be doing today, especially when they graduated college. So I think luck, a lot of it is going along the way and building those skill sets. So when an opportunity does come up, even if you're not looking for it, you can seize that opportunity. So I always try to emphasize that to people.
Yeah, I don't know who actually said that, but right, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So folks, generate your own luck, get those common skills, those leadership and management skills, talk to your professors, reach out, job shadow, internship, do these things that we've discussed today. And then, luck is a matter of what you make. You generate, you get those skills and you get some practice and you talk to people and, serendipity, you make your own luck. And so we're at our time, right? It's only 8 minutes. I don't see any questions in the Q&A. I feel like we've answered them. If our guests have any final questions, feel free to drop them. Again, we only have a few minutes, but if you do have a question, we will also endeavor to, send the information in the follow-up email. So we'll kind of wait for some questions while I just thank our panelists for such thorough information, right? Such rich information about your own career paths and kind of what you do. And I know to some extent we have to be a little careful about talking about what some of you do, right? But in the scheme of things, this idea of the public sector as being part of something greater is also why I teach at a university, right? It's, I happen to have advanced degrees, but this is the public good. This is our future. And this is deserving of my time, in my opinion. And so I do see such a wealth of information. Thank you very much, Kelly. So one of our guests wanted to just appreciate all the information that you're sharing. So I wanted to give you a personal thanks and let you know that we will be sharing this recording with our guests. We've also had already one request. Can we put this on our social media? So, right, people want to share this information. And so we really appreciate you coming today. And so we'll just hang out here for another moment. If there are any more questions or if anyone has anything to say in our last 5 minutes or so.
Oh, if I may piggyback on what Brad was saying, a lot of my career, the beginning of my, well, a lot of my career, I really didn't have a career path in mind. I didn't have goals of I wanted to be a specific place or a specific position or grade level or pay by a certain age or at the end of my career. It was all pretty much me just going out and saying, oh, you know what, that sounds interesting. I'd like to try that or move. I get bored if I don't have challenges, if I've, reached most of my challenges in a position or a place, then I want to go elsewhere. So I have moved quite a bit, almost 10 times for my career. But every time I enjoyed it. I got a lot out of it personally. And I believe I gave a lot as well that made differences, whether it be to individuals or a community or the public in general. As I mentioned, I've done narcotic seizures. I actually, something as simple as a food product that the FDA banned or said cannot come into the US and was supposed to be destroyed. And the people destroying it, I was to observe, and they just wanted to destroy the box. And I said, no, I need to see what's inside and need to destroy what's inside. And it wasn't the product. And it was actually investigated. It was a criminal offense. And it was a food product that had something in it that could cause birth defects or kill fetuses. So, something, it was only 5 boxes and something that was supposed to be so simple. I really got a charge out of knowing that, that I was part of that. I was the start of that. But all of it was just, I volunteered for things, the details to move, and you don't necessarily have to move. I mean, just what's great about, I think, all government agencies is you may start in one area and move to another area. Because again, going back to those common skills, I mean, I wanted to travel internationally. I applied for that international instructor, course developer position, thinking there's no way I'm going to get it. I don't know anyone. I'm not a teacher or instructor. I've never been trained as one, but I did things that, they were looking for, or I took opportunities to do some training other people. I took train the trainer, and it may just been on some simple things. It wasn't big picture, and it may have just been locally, but they said, oh, look at all these things she's been able to present as a trainer. And so just take the opportunities. And I keep saying this, don't sell yourself short. Sorry, didn't mean to go on.
You didn't. That was very, very helpful, actually. And as we wrap up, I would like to leave all of us with really a piece of Beverly's story. She talked about going up and then going down a couple of steps and then going up a couple of steps and then going down a couple of steps, right? Some of us have talked about starting in this area and moving to that area and moving to this area. Another piece that we've heard is about being flexible, being able to pivot. And thank you, Catherine. So many of the skills that we have and that we've talked about today are transferable as well. So keep these words in mind, right? Be flexible, be willing to move and pivot and go where the opportunities are when you're presented with those opportunities. And so, right, use your skills, use your transferable skills, use your time in college to build those core skills, those common skills. We cannot stress communication skills enough, folks. Writing, speaking, presentations. I know you think your faculty members just torture you with presentations, but these are important skills. So if we can just give our panelists a round of applause virtually here. And I've left no time, but thank you for having us, Catherine.
Oh, thank you so much. And once again, this panel did not disappoint. And I was taking copious notes to make sure we follow up on all the things, and all the links that I shared in the chat will be included in the email. And this is not a one and done. I mean, any members of the panel I know would be open to answering follow-up questions. You can probably find most of them on LinkedIn. I know if you need access to any federal agency, I'm always a resource for you. And very excited that we had this panel come together and appreciate everybody's time. And Dr. Rawls, you were a masterful moderator, as I knew you would be, and appreciate all your help with recruiting panelists for the other programs. And so we're ending right on time. So you managed your project perfectly. We came in under budget, on schedule, and accomplished our objectives. So good job. Thank you. Thank you.